Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Rangers Journal, a Friday news show on this Friday, the 13th of February. My name is Doug, taking a break from the workday and lunch to chat Rangers this afternoon. And joining me to do so, I've got Cammy. How are you getting on today, Cammy?
I'm good. I'm taking a break from my day off to talk Rangers. So as I was saying to you before we went live, not back at work now till Wednesday. So just enjoying the nice weather outside, and just looking forward to the game on Sunday. Just want 4:30 on Sunday to be here as quick as possible, and we can obviously chew the fat over all things Rangers. Looking forward to it.
That's it. Can't be an extra long weekend, and obviously, hopefully everyone is looking forward to their weekend as well. Obviously, we will talk about the Hearts game in a little bit. Obviously, we're going to go over the week's news, though. And we started off the week with some positives. Danny Rule was announced as the manager of the month, the SPL manager of the month, after an excellent January. And Rangers announced Emmanuel Fernandez as our player of the month for January as well. Both, I think, good shouts and reflective cameo, of what was a very good January. I think, without a doubt, our best month of the season. Lots of good results, starting obviously with the game away to Celtic. There was a lot of positivity. It felt like we were building momentum and obviously working our way into a real solid title challenge, which, despite the obviously the result that we'll talk about against Motherwell, we're still very much a part of.
Well, 100%. We've got ourselves into title contention. We've had a couple of bumps in February, but it's how you react to that. January was positive, started well with the comeback at Celtic, and obviously the double header against Aberdeen was always going to be difficult. But kudos to the manager. Manny Fernandez was excellent across the month. There was a lot to be positive about. We've done decent recruitment across the month as well. We got 2 or 3 in early, and then obviously done the business right at the end. But yeah, January was good, and we'll dig into Wednesday night. But we're in a position I don't think anybody would have envisaged back in October, November time. So I think we just have to look at it and say we've got maybe, say, 15 games left this season. It's about trying to win as many of those 15 games as possible and seeing where it takes us.
Absolutely. I think Fernandez, with his Player of the Month award, really, I feel like he's a really emblematic of our season this season. A year that started so poorly. And Fernandez was a player that was written off really early in the season when he wasn't getting picked. Obviously, I think it was a £3.5 million signing, and people were saying, we've got this player, he doesn't get picked, we paid all this money for him, and yet he's come into the team. Maybe a shaky game or two to start with, but then he's really sort of solidified his place. He's gotten stronger as the weeks have gotten on. He's added goals to the game. He's added a bit of solidity and a bit of confidence, and you can really, I think, if you pull things out, that's, as I say, emblematic of the season that, we started so poorly and we couldn't score goals. We brought in a new manager, and he's sort of solidified things, made us organised, made us more difficult to play against. And while everything hasn't gone our way, obviously the European campaign was still a bust ultimately. As I say, we find ourselves in a title challenge and going into what is, an ultimate, if you like, whether or not you like the phrase, a 6-pointer, if you like, going into, playing this really good Hearts team.
Manny Fernandez, again, it's a new manager comes in, gives them an opportunity. Players get better when they play games, and he's had a good run of games. He's a huge danger in the opposition box. Defensively, he's still got 1 or 2 areas that he needs to improve on, but I think that all of our defenders could defend better. That's not just a Manny Fernandez thing. There's clear interest in him, which I think is another asset But ultimately, I want assets that are helping Rangers to win trophies. And Manny Fernandes, I think he's basically in the starting 11 now for me for the rest of the season. I think the reason he didn't start on Wednesday night was the fact that he had just returned to training. They didn't want to push, and I think there's obviously a lot of comments in there about the team selection and so on and so forth. Sports science, modern football. I could talk about that on a podcast in itself. Back in the day, the same team would play on a Sunday, then the same team would play on a Wednesday. We're in this world of red zones and players approaching danger if they only play they can only play 60 and 30 and all this sort of nonsense. It is what it is. But Big Fernandes has been probably I would say the shining light under Danny Rule. He's came from a position where he wasn't trusted at all under Russell Martin, came in for a lot of money. And we all thought, what was spending £3.5 million on a guy that can barely get on the bench? But he's grabbed his opportunity and has done really well. And hopefully he stays available for the rest of the season, because I do think we miss him in the opposition box at corners. I just think he's even if he doesn't get the goal, I think he's such a threat. It's like watching Arsenal last night. Big Gabriel for Arsenal is very, very similar. I think attracts players and that allows space for others. But Big Fernandes will certainly be starting on Sunday if I was picking the team.
Yeah, I was going to get to the sort of the lineup questions a little bit later, but as you say, we've got a lot of comments about it, so we'll just get straight into it just now. Obviously, the team lineup came out for the game, and basically from the get go, fans weren't happy. There was a lot of obviously the new players, Olsen, Romans, Nadiri on the bench, and players like Chermiti back into the team. I'll start with, seeing as we've been talking about Fernandes in the defence, we've got a few comments here. Ghostface 4, sort of a donkey man, Juicy Bear, sort of ball watches. We were just talking beforehand, and I agree with what you'd said to me just before we went live. I thought Surt had an excellent game up until that last second. I personally feel that Surt gets a little bit more grief than he deserves. A lot of people seem to not like him, totally not rate him. I think we got the player that we bought when we bought him, where a lot of people point to that cup game against Hearts where he was fantastic against us. And he showed all the qualities that I think he's shown throughout his time with us as well, in terms of he's got that very kind of Scottish defender. And like that, we refer to it as kind of siege defending. He throws himself in front of balls. He makes tackles. He's big. He's strong. Now, he's not the perfect defender. He has the occasional error in him. Obviously, some people saying he's a little bit slow to get to the ball for that goal. But as much as, we can point to that and say, okay, maybe he can do better there, we should have been 3-0 up by that point in the game. I don't think that the blame should lie entirely at Sutter's door. Yes, okay, maybe he does better and we win the game 1-0. But as I say, I think we should have been 3-0 up with the chances we had prior to that. And for me, that has always been, for the last 5-6 seasons, our biggest problem. I think overall we defend generally reasonably well across the season. Errors and things aside, it's always been we do not score enough goals. We do not take enough chances and allow teams like Motherwell to stay in games, which means that even whether it's a mistake or just a bit of luck or they get a great bit of play, you always run the risk of that happening in terms of a late equaliser or a late loser if you don't put teams away.
Just to go back to the Suter situation, I thought he had a good game up until the goal. There's points of failure with regard to the goal. You stop the ball actually getting shelled into the box. Are we pressing well enough? Suter, to me, there's always a mistake in him. He's a decent defender, but there's always been, and across his Rangers career, he's always been the same. The issue for me is we scored a really good goal. Fantastic football from Diomande, great midfield run from Raskin, finished away. and then for the rest of that half, I don't think we really Motherwell came back into the game and dominated. So you've got yourselves in at half time, and you're thinking, you're looking at the bench, going, it's a strong. There's lots of options. Expected all the new players pretty much to get minute. We're talking about minutes and all that. So I was expecting around about the 60-minute mark. Skov Olsen, Romans, Nadiri, etc. And I think John's comment with regard to that, Danny Reuell's done a lot right to get us back into this position, but I thought he got a lot wrong tactically in that second half. 1-0 is such a dangerous scoreline. You need to put games to bed. Chermiti has a glorious chance before half time, and you go in at 2-0. That's not a clinical striker. You know, at the end of the day, Chermiti's not a Rangers number 9 that's going to get you 20-25 goals. His reputation has been enhanced off the back of 2 goals against Celtic, which is fair enough. But he's just, you can't hang your hat on him to be composed enough and stick the ball in the back of the net. And he misses the first chance. He's not composed for the second chance. I thought he had a poor night. Looked very rusty. I don't know how he lasted as long on the pitch. To be honest, I would probably have had him off at half time. But as a whole, Danny Reuell talks often about front foot football. I thought we were back foot. I think we were quite happy. We were content to sit on a 1-0. And what happened is a movie we have seen so many times before. If you've not put the game to bed, see if you're 2 or 3-0 up, then you can just sit in and then try to play them on the counter attack. You don't do that. We didn't have an out ball. We had no pace to allow us to actually do that. The subs were wrong. As I say, Danny Reuell got lots wrong on Wednesday night, but we just have to move on from it. We got a point. We go to Sunday and we win on Sunday and we get it back to 2 points. And hopefully Finlay Curtis can do us a turn in the game earlier on. But there's loads and loads of things. The middle to front we were poor, and the front three is a front three that I hope we don't see again. It's been played multiple times this season, and it's not. There's not enough goals and creativity within that. Although I thought Mikey Moore was better in the second half, I still think he was below the levels that I would expect from him.
Yeah, I think, touching on the front three, Andrew here saying Gassama too inconsistent. I would agree with that. I think he's one that seems to keep getting picked despite not affecting games. And when I say affecting games, I mean basically scoring goals and getting assists, which is, as a winger, what he needs to be doing. I do think, or I do hope, ideally, as Skov Olsen's fitness improves, we'll see more of him and less of Gassama, because I just don't think he came in, obviously, a bit like a sparkler. He came in, he was all bright and shiny, but then as the fire's gone along the way, it's kind of dampened down and more, and he's just not giving us what we need. I don't think. Chermiti, there was a comment. Did I start it? No, I didn't. Someone mentioned. Apologies, I can't quite find it right now, but someone in the comments, apologies for missing it, said that he snatches at chances, and I think that's what he does. And 2 of the chances he gets in this game, he hits them straight at the goalkeeper. Whereas if he just takes a second to kind of pause and breathe and puts it to either side, he scores a goal. And Danny Reuell actually touches on that in his presser today when he was asked about Chermiti. He says that he still has faith in him, and that that's basically what he's missing, having that moment where he can sort of maybe be a bit more calm, have a bit more consistency, and take that extra touch. Is it unsurprising that we're seeing these things from a player who is still relatively young, and again, despite the big fee, hasn't played huge amounts of first team football?
Yeah, I think I've said on pods across the season, he's still very raw. I think I said on a pod recently that I would love Ali McCoist or Jermaine Defoe or somebody of that ilk to go in and actually do one-to-one or group sessions with the strikers with regard to their movement. Ali McCoist, the greatest goal scorer Rangers have ever had. You listen to him in commentary, and there's so many things that he says with regard to the movement of strikers and stuff like that, But Chimiti's very raw, and I think it says a lot about what Danny Rule thinks about Majowski, that Chimiti has came back in off the back, playing for a couple of weeks. Majowski scored, so it almost shows you the pecking order is this. I think Nadiri, Chimiti, and then Majowski. That's your sort of 1, 2, 3. Gassama had a fantastic start. Has flattered to deceive, doesn't go past his man often enough, should never be played on the right-hand side. If he plays on the left-hand side, because he offers absolutely nothing on the right-hand side. That's the huge frustration for me. I think Skov Olsen, we're in a position after Sunday. It's pretty much week-to-week football for the next 8 to 10 weeks. There's no excuse for the best starting 11 to start every single game. And I think we do that, get the best 11 players on the park, and then you get a run at it. You get consistency, you get understanding. But you've got guys like Gassama off the bench that could make a contribution. I mean, we're at a stage where I think Ant-Man's done really well the couple of games that he's came on the left-hand side. I would start Ant-Man on the left-hand side before I started Gassama. And who would have thought that? we all thought Ant-Man's Rangers career was approaching its end. But I think the Nadiri starts on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see who starts off the left. But I think there's a lot of comments that we're losing our mind about draws and what have you. I think we've had opportunities against Hibs and Motherwell to really, really, really put a statement down. I think that's the frustration. I think there has been a lot of knee-jerk reactions, but it's about reacting to it on Sunday and getting ourselves right on Hearts' tail. There was one of the comments earlier talked about Kilmarnock, looking for Kilmarnock to do us a favour. Kilmarnock doing us a favour doesn't mean anything if we don't do our business. We have to focus on, but it's you have to pay attention to the other games in the hope that something can happen, but it's all meaningless. And I think we will need to win 10, 11 games between now and the end of the league season to come out on top. And hopefully that starts on Sunday.
Absolutely. I think saying fans are losing their mind over one draw, for me, it's not really an entire sentence, because fans aren't losing their mind over just this one draw. They're losing their mind because of the draw and what's happened last season and the season before that and the season before that and the season before that, where we've gotten ourselves, most seasons we are in a good position around Christmas, whether we've been leading and at the top of the table, or whether we've been performing well as the chaser, and so many seasons we've ended up losing games, drawing games, dropping points as we go into January and into the the business end of the table. And that's what people are really reacting to. It's the scar tissue that's twinging, because they're going, oh no, not again. And I think that's why you get this visceral reaction. It's why, for example, the boos at halftime when we were only 1-0 up against Kilmarnock, it's that scar tissue that folk have. So that's kind of my thought on that one. I want to get your thoughts, Cammy, on you mentioned Nadiri. He obviously was the obvious alternative to play, other than Chimiti and Miovski also. But Baron Loyal said Nadiri should have started and been subbed off at halftime if he wasn't 100%. This gets at a point that I've heard spoken about a lot. I think I hope I'm not misquoting, but I'm pretty certain David Gers mentioned this a lot on Heart and Hand over the years as well. This idea of when you've got a player who maybe only has one half in them, do you play them at the start and get yourself 2-3-0 up? We'll say it's a striker example. So do you play Nadiri at the start and get yourself 2-3 up and then take him off? Or do you save him to put him on when you then, by this second half, could already be 2-0 down? Where do you kind of fall on that argument?
It's an interesting one. They always talk about it in cup ties where their sides are heavily rotated. Play your best side for the first 60 and then make the changes, put the game to bed. I think I'm neither one way or the other, to be honest. I was surprised that he didn't start, but I can understand that I would probably be inclined to start with, if I was to make a decision, I'd be inclined to start as strong as possible and say if somebody's got 45 or 60 minutes, that's what they play. And then a Gassama or a Chimriti comes on for the last half an hour, and in the hope that Nadiri has had the chance and shows more composure, and you're 2-0 up at half time, and then you're able to make the changes. So I'd probably err on the side of starting strong and then making the changes. But it's like you say, this isn't just a Rangers issue. I think there's a lot of clubs are doing similar situations. It's it's an interesting one. I mean, sports science is a huge part of modern football, but once we get past Sunday, there's no excuses. It's week to week, and you should get consistency selection. But I'd have been inclined to probably start Nadiri, and if you get 45 to 60 out of him, then great.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, but I'm going to put a wee poll in the chat for this as well. So have your say, guys, in the chat there. I've stuck this in. If we have a player, particularly a key player, and they can only play one half, do you start strong, play them in the first half, or do you use them as the sort of the killing blow and play them in second? So how about we look at the poll in the chat for that one? After thinking about it, I'm the same. I would play them first half because football so often can be about momentum, and so I think, for me, I want to play them, get them to hopefully make the difference and give us the momentum going into the second half of a match, ideally being 1-2-0 up maybe. And at the end of the day, if you put them on and it turns out they only had 10 minutes and they break down, well, then you just have to take the sub. And particularly nowadays where we've got 5 subs, I think it's easier to do that. But it's easier to take that risk. You put them on, they end up breaking down after 10 minutes. Okay, go with the plan you would have done otherwise, and that would be that. Got a comment here from Benidorm. Maybe Chucky is the issue. What were your thoughts on his performance?
I think I'll echo Baron Loyal. I thought he was really good. Winning tackles, recovery, all the stuff. We done a show on the Heart and Hand Network where we were speaking about a couple of the new signings, and Chukwani was one of them. And our scouting analysis guys had basically said about his ball recovery and all that sort of stuff. That's I thought Diomande had decent games at times. There isn't a player that controls the game. I completely echo Scott's thoughts, and that's yet again I'm going to talk about the need for a dominant number 6. I think Chukwani will be a great signing for us. I didn't think he was the problem. I just thought he's not going to be the guy that's going to play the incisive passes for the forwards, but in a balanced midfield, I think he will more than contribute and will have the skill set to fit into Rangers in Scottish football and in Europe, because he's very tenacious, very strong, gets the ball back, what have you. It's up to the players. It's up to him to pass the ball to Mikey Moore and Gassama, and for them to then do the business. But I've very positive early signs. I thought Diomande flashes showed really some good moments in the first half. I think the yellow card, the referee had an absolute stinker, was so inconsistent with his decisions on Wednesday night. I thought I didn't think the three in the midfield done bad. I thought they tried. I thought the main issue was the creative players ahead of them didn't do enough, and that's I was very much, I wanted that to be the middle three. I thought that was the middle three that fitted. I think that's the middle three that you can go in against when you go to Celtic towards the end of the season, you go into Hearts towards the end of the season. It's about the creative players because they give you a solid base, but we do lack a dominant number 6 who can control the play and the tempo and stuff. But Giaquani, early signs are positive for me. And I'll just quickly say, penalty kick, I can't believe it doesn't appear to have even been given any consideration by VAR. The commentary didn't make any reference to it. And it's one of those, I've definitely seen them given, whether it's an intended foul or not. There's certainly, Chermiti has been impacted. And, I'm surprised that there wasn't a penalty given. And then you get the second goal and you go in at half-time, and we're sitting here on Friday the 13th having a conversation about Rangers being level at the top of the league instead of having dropped 2 points.
Absolutely. The last time I saw someone taken down from both sides like that, I was watching the WWE, and it was the Hardy Boys flying in. So that was definitely a penalty in my eyes as well. Touching on the midfield, I think the midfield were good. Actually, that game, it was a very combative, particularly in the first half, very combative game. There was a lot of that, that move where you shield the ball and then you kind of twist the body. Players were doing that left, right, and centre. I was loving it, getting in about it, and I thought we gave as good as we got in the midfield. John here has touched on the bench. He mentions Diomande not doing enough. I thought Diomande was excellent. The problem with Diomande is he gets himself booked too easily, and then he's a worry for the red, which is my only main concern. But other than that, as I say, I thought Diomande had a good game. Diomande for me is one of those players who often goes under the radar because he's doing a lot of the dirty work quite well. He used to do it in Old Firm games before he kind of came into his own a little bit more in the Old Firm matches. There was a lot of Old Firm games I thought people were criticised him when he was actually doing, as I say, a lot of the dirty work that I think with Connor Barron having come in and now Giaquani coming in, he'll maybe not have to do quite as much of because you've got another combative player in there as well. Got another question here from Baron Loyal. Would you have kept Curtis and taken the 10 million for Gassama?
Was there a £10 million bid, or was that an agent?
Yeah.
You just don't know with regard to that. Curtis, I think it sounds from reports on Wednesday night, he played as a wing back apparently for Kilmarnock against St Mirren, which is interesting. I've seen one or two stats. He had 9 shots at goal, created one of the goals. Finlay Curtis is a bundle of energy, what have you, but I still think he's going to get more opportunities to start games for Kilmarnock, and I think Danny Rule's very much, it's about, is Finlay Curtis going to be the difference between Rangers winning the league and not winning the league? He probably trusts the players that he's got and the players that he's signed, whether we agree with that or not. He probably thinks that the long-term development of Finlay Curtis will be better suited to getting 12 to 15 games, starting games between now and the end of the season. And as I said earlier, he could more than cause problems when Kilmarnock come up against Hearts. And so the same as Welsh done his parent club a turn by scoring that goal on Wednesday night. Finlay Curtis, and he's more than capable of doing us a turn on the other side. But I think it's probably too simplistic to say keep Finlay Curtis and sell Gassama and everything's... it's not quite as... Gassama has flattered a lot to deceive. I think there's clearly interest in him. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he moved on in the summer because there's clearly a lot of clubs looking at him. He probably ticks a lot of the boxes with regard to the analysis of what they're looking for in players. But Finlay Curtis, I want to see 12 to 15 games out of him between now and the summer. Comes back as a good pre-season, and then he's forcing himself completely into the manager's thoughts as one of the 15 or 16 starting next season.
Yep, absolutely. I think that would be the ideal outcome. I said from the beginning, I think you could argue that if Rangers were looking at short term, then yeah, maybe it's better to have kept him as an option. But then, how many minutes does he ultimately get to play? The long term better option is the loan, so he can go out and play hopefully every game for Kilmarnock for the rest of the season, and play well doing so. The inevitable comment on my attire has come along. Doug, are you wearing a dressing gown? It's a cardigan. It's a cardigan. It's not a dressing gown. Although I am wearing it for the same reason you'd wear a dressing gown, because I'm cold. So yes, my flat only has single glazed windows, so I have to do the extra to keep the heat in. We'll move on from the Motherwell game, because that's all depressing and boring, and ultimately is now in the past. So we look forward. The other bit of news that was confirmed this week was, of course, our draw for the Scottish Cup quarter-final, which we will meet the old enemy in. Got a home draw, obviously, only being the quarter-final. Is still played at home or away stadiums, so it's not often that we meet Celtic this early on. It tends to be semi-finals that we get drawn in, but let's see, we are drawn in the quarter-final. It's been confirmed for Sunday, the 8th of March. And of course, it also means that we have a double header now, where we'll meet Celtic the weekend before at Ibrox, before then take them in the cup. Again, not something you necessarily often get, a double header back-to-back weekends. Old Firm, I'm sure the TV are loving that. But what do you make of the draw, and obviously the fact that we'll have this double header now, which is going to obviously bring pressure. No doubt, but I was going to say no doubt by then that game will be a must win. It's a must win anyway. But it's now compounded by having the another must win, because it's a cup final, quarter final. Sorry. There's been the criticism of Danny Role, because it seemingly is obvious he made decisions for the Motherwell game with one eye on the Hearts game. How do you think he's going to react to having that double header to play with?
But again, I think it's week to week. I don't think he's going to have a full week between the league game and the cup game. To go back to the cup, my only ask is always that the person doing the draw, I can't even remember if it was Scott Brown that was doing the draw, or whoever it was on Sunday night, is they pull out it was Lee Miller, sorry. They pull out the hot ball and make sure that it's Rangers at home. That's my only ask as we get a home tie. It's good to actually have the back-to-back against Celtic. Those the youngsters won't remember. Way back, Rangers went to under Walter Smith or Souness, I think it was. We went and played Celtic in the days of Mark Hateley and Mark Walters, and we lost back-to-back games against Celtic way back when we were dominant and winning everything. So I think, as I say, once we get past the game on Sunday, the manager's got no excuses. He can't talk about managing minutes and all that sort of stuff. And I think he said that himself, that we get into there's going to be far more time on the training pitch, which I think is important. So I would expect the same team to start both games against Celtic. I mean, it's a few weeks away, but the Sunday, the 1st, is obviously the league game. You want to win that, get the psychological boost from that. That'll put you into a position with regard to where you are in the league, and then you win the cup. And you win the 2 games, you end Celtic's season possibly. But you also focus on us, the momentum and the confidence that you would get from beating Celtic back to back. But to be honest, I don't think the games against Celtic are the concern for me. And I've said this on pods across the last 2 or 3 years. It's beating the other teams that's the problem. It's dropping points against Hibs. It's dropping points against Motherwell. We could quite conceivably beat Celtic back to back and then go to St Mirren the week after and draw. That's the problem, without being dismissive of the games against Celtic. But the Celtic game's going to be, and there's obviously the talking point about the allocation of tickets. I think they get the Broomloan stand. I don't think it's the rules there with regard to 20%. If the boot was on the other foot and we were going across there, I would be looking for the old allocation of 7,500, 8,000 tickets. Celtic might push their luck and try to get up to 10,000, but that's not going to happen. So for me, I don't know how that impacts season ticket holders that are within the Broomloan with regard to relocation and so on and so forth. I don't know what the small print and the terms and conditions of season tickets are, but I think it would. I'm looking forward to both the games, but we've got business to deal with before we get to Celtic. But it's a real opportunity when those games come round.
Indeed. I totally agree on the allocation. To me, the old allocation makes full sense. I'm pro that going back to being what we do in the first place, because I just think that it makes for a better atmosphere when you've got a significant amount of supporters from the other side, and that goes both way around for games over there as well. But we'll not to dwell on that one. That's an argument that could also be a pod of its own. Ultimately, I think for me, the thing that comes out there is just that every game matters. Yes, we can look at the glamorous parts and the glamorous games and the double headers and everything else, but every game matters. The St Mirren games, the Motherwell games, the Livingston games, they'll all play their part. So we need to do our business in every one. Another thing I wanted to just pull out, just as a small thing, not really a news per se, but I was sort of flicking through as I was going to give myself a wee reminder of what had happened during the week and flicking through Rangers Twitter. I was reminded that they'd put out a post earlier in the week promoting the Union Bears and promoting tifos and encouraging people to donate to the Union Bears, who obviously put a lot of work into it and money into making these things happen. And I just wanted to touch on that for kind of two reasons. One, it seems to fall in line with a little bit of kind of media work they've done recently in terms of trying to boost the atmosphere at Ibrox. Obviously, they put out the whole campaign about basically don't leave early. They've got this sort of promoting the New Year's. But I also thought it was kind of nice just because obviously in recent times there's been a lot of friction between the club and the Union Bears. There's obviously that issue over one of the tifos that they did that a lot of people felt the CEO at the time, Patrick Stewart, kind of put the fans out to dry in that one, and that obviously was unpopular. So I just wanted to touch on it because it's kind of nice to see that relationship mending and improving. And seemingly the club obviously having a more positive stance when it comes to working with them.
Well, I think working together, I think it's better to work with the Rangers support and the fan groups, etc. You compare with the what's going on across the city. They think they run the football club. They're ultra, whatever you want to call them, group, and I think Celtic are reaping what has been built up over a number of years. But with regard to Rangers, I think it's good if we're trying to be collaborative. I hope that the club could actually contribute financially as well to assist with regard to donations. It shouldn't all be left. I mean, the Union Bears, when we go back to the 150-year celebration, it was pretty much the Union Bears donations and all that sort of stuff that meant that happened. So they put on. Listen, they do daft things at times, but they do bring a bit of colour. You obviously saw the tifo on Wednesday night. It's unfortunately that we didn't give a performance to match with regard to match that, but it's a slight change of tact in recent weeks with regard to the communication on the Stay for 90 and the importance of the fans, and it can never be underestimated what a full Ibrox 100% supporting the team, the impact that has on the players. The players have their responsibility to obviously show something on the pitch, and that's where you all come together as one. And again, I'll use the run to Seville 2022 we would never have got to Seville in 2022 if it wasn't for the Rangers support. The Rangers support in all of the home games played a massive part. We done the business on the pitch. We done the business in the stands. And that's where our contribution as supporters between now and the end of the season, if we're seeing what we want on the pitch, stay with the players. We can have the influence to get us over the line at the end of the season. So it's good to see, and I'm interested to see what tifos they've got in mind. I'm sure the club will be approving them, which I think is always a sensible thing. To go back to the Souness one, I still don't know what was wrong with it, to be honest, but it's the world that we live in. But it's good to see a bit of collaboration, and there's obviously good dialogue between the club and the Union Bears. And as long as it's done properly and it's the right messages and so on and so forth, I want the Ibrox matchday experience to get better, because it has become tired across recent years. So that's it's a positive for me, Doug.
100%. I think for me, these types of things, these little extras, for me, are the things that show a board that are attentive, that are paying attention, and that, you know, whether or not you agree with the things that they're doing something. Whereas I think in recent years we've had boards that, you know, really didn't do enough of those sort of peripheral things, sort of on the edge of the basic day to day. So I'm a fan of that. And absolutely, fans have a huge part to play, helping pick players up when they're not playing well, and then, you know, players helping pick up us with good performances. As you said, Seville is the meter stick to judge these things by. I talked earlier about football being about momentum, and in addition to that, being about narrative. And clubs came to Ibrox during that run worried because they knew there was something. Whether they knew what they were expecting or what they knew, that there was something they had to tackle before they even got on the pitch. That used to be something that you said about the great Man United teams as well. Teams were beaten before they even walked on the pitch, because there was that feeling that it doesn't matter what you do, Man United will just get a last minute goal. You know, they had the Fergie time thing, and that was the sort of thing that gave them that edge. And during Seville, we had the Ibrox noise. That was what gave us our edge. And it as I say, as you said, it came to the fore, and afterwards, managers, Tedesco being one, came out afterwards and said, we talked about it, but it was different being there, and I just don't think the players handled it well. Multiple managers have said that, not only in recent times, but over the years, and players as well. There's the famous quotes from Buffon when Parma came, that he could not believe the noise for the first 10 minutes of that match as well. And that can definitely make the difference. This afternoon, before we came on live, there was the presser with Danny Roll about obviously the Hearts game, which is the final sort of bit of news to touch on. I'll just go over a couple of the main kind of things I pulled out from that. Immediately, there was a headline where he was asked about the stats of the squad, any injuries, etc., and he basically declined to answer, saying that last time he basically gave the all clear, and then there were issues, and so essentially saying that's why I made some of the changes I made, was because, you know, yes, he'd said that everyone was fit, but then there was apparently some niggles. Nadiri didn't start because apparently he had a niggle, and so they decided to leave him out. So that suggests he might have been in the frame to actually start against Motherwell. So he declined to give any issues there. So as far as we know, there's no major issues, but yes, he hasn't commented on that. He did refer to it as a must-win. Tavernier in his post-Motherwell comments also referred to it as a must-win, so I think it's fair enough. He talked about learning lessons, taking chances and controlling games. He didn't outright sort of call out Chermiti's chances, but kind of in a roundabout way said, you know, we need to take our chances, and I think that was basically a little pointer at that. I'm talking about controlling the game more, which I think, you know, obviously Motherwell have had an excellent season themselves, playing really good football, and we saw that in that game, and I will probably see a similar thing from Hearts as well. And then the last point was just what I think I touched on it earlier, where he said he still believes in Chermiti, and saying that he can still make a difference. It's those small moments that he needs to still improve on. I don't know if you've seen the presser at all yourself,
No,
Cammy, but
I just quickly skimmed through it. I haven't watched, but I didn't expect him to give a lot away. I would think Derek McInnes will be very, very similar. And who's available, who's not available. You don't want to give any clues to the opposition manager. I've got my own ideas what I would like to see on Sunday. We just have to wait and see if Danny Rule's on the same page with regard to that. But he said he had a specific plan. This is a game that you would expect us to have far more possession than we did against Motherwell. I thought we allowed Motherwell to have, it was pretty much 60-40, I think was probably the thing. I think the thing, just quickly with regard to that, better football, I think, and comes from, I still think it comes from understanding, and I don't think changing the team consistently. I think Romans and Ant-Man in the early games that they've played together look as though there's a chemistry there. So I think that might be something that I would quite like to see. If you see players that have built an understanding and a chemistry together, look down south at Liverpool, Ekitike and Wirtz, don't think they've worked on it, but they've just naturally clicked together. So, but I think the better football will come, and more fluency in the way that we play comes from consistency in the team. Yep. And I think having Bajrami as the 10 more the next week and decide this is how we're going to set up. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be Chakwani, Raskin, Diamande? Is that going to be the three? And then the wingers, it's their purpose to create, it's their job, but the three in the middle are going to give you the sort of base. But Nico showed on Wednesday night, midfielders can still make a run. So there's no question of the three of them all staying in the one line, but it's must win. I think it's definitely not losing. I think basically kills your title hopes pretty much. But I think there's going to be a lot of twists and turns. But I think it is about Sunday would be a statement to get back to 2 points, and then how the Hearts react to being right on their tails. I think the game after that, we go to Livingston, not too sure on Hearts. I try not to look too far ahead because Danny Rule himself talks about it's just about the next game. And
they've got Falkirk.
Falkirk, is it?
No, it's a home game.
A home game, but Falkirk have obviously caught it. But regardless of that, I think Hearts are going to have bumps between now and the end of the season. Celtic are going to have bumps between the end of the season. What we need to do is control what we can control, and that is us winning as many games as we possibly can. What the other teams do will have a bearing on where we end up, obviously. But if you win your 12 games, I think you end up as league champions. It is as simple as that. Do I think any of the three teams in contention win all 12 games? No, I don't. But that's the way to look at it. Win on Sunday, and then win against Livingston, and then win against Celtic, and then win against St Mirren. I think that's the 4 league games between now and the international break. That's the way I would be sort of looking at it. But Sunday is just about the Rangers crowd will, as much as we're all frustrated about dropping points against Hibs and dropping points against Motherwell, the Rangers crowd on Sunday, 4:30 kick-off. I think it's on Sky Sports because it's FA Cup this weekend, so it's nationwide. I think a lot of people down south will be watching it. Put on a show. The Rangers crowd will be 100% behind the team, and I think, as somebody said in the comments about the players have to show something on the pitch. Of course, it works both ways, and that was part of the situation when the run to Seville. We started day games like a train, and you get the energy from the crowds and from what's happening on the pitch. And I think Sunday, that's what I'm expecting. Sunday was a game I didn't have huge concern. I was more concerned about our ability to go to Motherwell, and what played out is sort of part of what I feared. Home game against Hearts, I think we'll win on Sunday by a couple of goals.
Bold projection there, but exciting one nonetheless. The comments went, and I love the little diversion while we were chatting there. I ended up talking about Ibrox adjustments. We had people here who wants a Greg's, and Ibrox. I don't think people would be against that, to be fair. So get we Greg's, we sausage roll before.
Do you know what's funny? Obviously, I refer to Callum all the time, and like. I say that to him. You really need a Subway and all that. Just like,
get a new Subway loyal. Get a new Subway loyal.
I actually have a Subway within the stadium, so that's the Subway loyal. But I just think that
you're welcome for that advertising, Subway. By the way,
I think they can contact me and they can send me some supplies. But yeah, I think there's a lot of improvements that the new ownership. They're obviously trying to look at the things that need to be done. Ibrox was neglected for a long number of years, and I think recent owners have attempted to correct that. The catering's been rubbish and overpriced for a long time, but I just want to see a winning Rangers team on the park, and a Rangers team that, come the split, is properly in contention to lift the league title on the last day of the season. That's all we want. We can all pick holes about the atmosphere and this, that, and the next thing. We just want Rangers to win. And
we won't care if we win at the end of the day.
You know how bad, back to the days when you got Bears Pakora and Blue Nose burgers and all that sort of situation. That was when we were dominant and we were winning 4, 5, 6 league titles on the trot. But we are where we are now. Get a winning team on the park that's lifting trophies a couple of times a season, and then the noise that's in the background can then be, it's just noise in the background. It's not at the forefront of people's moaning, to be honest. I think you're doing improvements off the pitch, you're improving the match day experience, you're improving the catering, so on and so forth. But Danny Rule and the players' responsibility between now and the end of the season is to win as many of the 15 games as possible, so that Tav's lifting 2 trophies at the end of the season. And that would be, without going into a Tav pod, I would love nothing more than James Tavernier to end his Rangers career this summer having lifted a league and cup. But that's just that. I'm not saying that he potentially doesn't merit another year, but I think it would be a nice way for him to end his Rangers career, to be honest.
That would indeed be perfect. I think I'm going to agree. Obviously, we need to go into this game and win. I'm going to disagree that I don't think that if the worst case scenario occurs and we lose this game, I don't actually think that ends the title challenge, specifically because it's a triple threat. If it were a standard 1v1 affair, then yeah, I would probably agree. But post split, we'll play Hearts again, Celtic again. Celtic will have to play Hearts because there's this 3-way. I think again you would really start to rely on other teams by that point. That I would agree with. But that's the excitement of this season for the neutral. They must be loving it. Like I say, going into this weekend, Hearts. Going into the next weekend. Hearts playing Falkirk, which will not be an easy game. Falkirk have been playing well. We've got St Mirren, we've got Livingston, which you'd like to think we can win that one. And Celtic are playing Hibs, which will be a tough game for them. And they're struggling to put teams away. They are doing it, unfortunately, but they are struggling, and that kind of luck can usually only last so long. So we'll see. But
see, just quickly, the thing about winning on Sunday, it gives the players confidence and it gives the support confidence. That's part of the frustration of Wednesday night. The belief that you get amongst the support, and we want to believe in this Rangers manager and this Rangers team to win the big games. that get us to that position. That's why everybody's a bit on edge with regard to it. The only way that we can build belief is to win games starting on Sunday and get that confidence and belief that this Rangers team actually has the cojones to go on and lift the title at the end of the season.
Even Curry is agreeing on the Tav ending on a double.
Oh, but listen, if I've achieved...
That's how we're ending this show. That's how we're ending this show.
If I've achieved nothing in any of these podcasts, I've got Curry agreeing about San on Tav. Made my day.
Curry, he's been really soft on Tav this season. I've seen like multiple comments of positivity at points. So he must just be getting doughy-eyed because it's almost at the end. But yeah, that would be a great way. Well, thank you to everyone for tuning in. That's us just getting towards the hour mark there. So we'll bring it to a close. It's been another exciting week in the title race, and obviously not in the way that we'd have liked. But as I say, we are very much still in this race. We go into the weekend, hopefully, to get a win. Another big game. Rangers, as Cammy says, have to start winning these big matches. This is the mere definition of a 6-pointer. And getting that gap to 2 would be huge going into the games to follow. As I say, thank you to our sponsor, Bluebell's Bar at Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote. If you are out in that direction, then go and give them a shout. Tell them Rangers Journal sent you, and you'll be sure to have a great time there. They do show all the football, including all the Rangers games, so you don't have to miss a kick of the ball while you're on your holidays. Thank you to Cammy for joining me this afternoon. Thank you to everyone in the comments. We'll see you again at the weekend for pre- and post-match content around the Hearts game, which we will hopefully be celebrating as a good victory. As Cammy said, let's knock a few goals past them. That would be fantastic. Hat trick for Nadiri. Let's call it now. We'll leave it there. So thanks for tuning in. Just remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Cheers, guys.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.